87% of your consumers or people that are looking to meet you or network with you are starting that journey online. They're going to Google, they're typing in your name, they're typing in your company name. What shows up is going to create their first impression about you. And first impressions aren't changed easily.
From Sales Loop, this is How to Sell More, where B2B leaders get fresh sales and marketing ideas and proven strategies from industry experts and seasoned entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Mark Drager, and on today's episode, we're exploring why great marketing just isn't enough. When your brand's reputation is turning prospects away, when it's silently sabotaging your sales pipeline. Now, maybe your company has had a real knock to its online reputation, or maybe you're in sales, you're marketing, maybe you're in HR, and you're tired of all your hard work building relationships being wasted by a bad corporate image. Or maybe you're a business owner who's building authority in your space year after year, decade after decade, and you want to protect what you have built. Well, this episode is for you because joining me today is Dave Fulk, the CEO of Reputation Rhino, and an active investor who specializes in helping those owner-managed businesses scale beyond the $2 to $10 million range. Now, a few quick highlights about Dave before we get into this talk. He started his career in business operations, and through his time there, he really developed a talent for solving really complex organizational challenges, the types of challenges that we all face, whether it's on the marketing side or the operations side, the types of challenges that hold back and constrain growth. Now, as an investor, Dave has taken this and pioneered a really unique approach to scaling by assembling what he calls a dream team that he brings into a business to help focus on removing roadblocks and constraints that are holding back the growth. Now, what you'll hear today and what we're really going to get into is the fact that Reputation Rhino, his company, is a leading online reputation management company that helps high net worth individuals and businesses protect their digital presence. We're going to talk about that quite a bit today. And so with all that said, I'm excited to share with you the conversation that I had with Dave Fulk. Dave, it's awesome to have you on the podcast because we've known each other for a few years now, and I'm always impressed by how you present yourself. You know, your website, from the stage, the shirts that you're known to wear. I don't know if I can say this, but they all have written on them, "Be Fulking Awesome." So I know we have a lot to cover, and I'm going to just jump straight in with my first question. So can a company's brand, something that's supposed to be a massive asset, can that actually become a liability?
We'll just skip to the answer to that. And the answer is yes. And the reason it is because people are smarter today. Consumers are not the dumb consumers that they used to be. We have this thing called the intranets. It's evolved. How people shop has evolved. Amazon has forever changed us. We're an instant gratification society. We also live in the day and age of your phones are like this, right? We live in the age of the influencer. And how we consume information and our instant gratification expectations have changed. I grew up in the Midwest, right? I'm originally from Kansas City. You look somebody in their eyes, you shook their hand when you met them. Well, I'm here to tell you that the handshake has been replaced by the Google search. Everybody uses Google to search up information. And from a statistics standpoint of your brand being a liability is whether you believe it or not, 87% of your consumers or people that are looking to meet you or network with you are starting that journey online. They're going to Google, they're typing in your name, they're typing in your company name. What shows up is going to create their first impression about you. And first impressions aren't changed easily. Recently, Cornell University did a study on this, and they brought two focus groups in. They had focus group A and focus group B. Focus group A, they asked to make certain mad faces, happy face, sad face, smile, scowl, whatever it was. That's it. That was their instruction. And they took a picture of them making this face. Focus group B said, we're going to show you a series of faces for 1 second each. And then on that 1 second assessment, we want you to write down how you feel and what kind of person you think this is. And so obviously, quick, flash on, flash off. That's all you got to see of this person. And they were making the face that they were told to make. And group B had to write down, hey, this is how they made me feel. This is the type of person I think they're. Obviously, if somebody's smiling, like, oh, they're great. I want to meet them. They're a good person. If they're angry and they're scowling, they didn't like them. 6 months goes by. They bring both focus groups back and they do a mixer. They bring these people together. They have no idea that they were groups A's and B. And what they did is they told group B, we want you to go interact with the group that's out there. And then after an hour, we want to come back and we want to ask you questions about them. And they asked them questions about each person that they met. And what was insane is they still felt the same way about the person that they met 6 months later when they'd only seen a picture of them for 1 second. That's how important first impressions are. And that's the part that people just don't understand and why their brand or their personal brand could become a liability. What it says about you online. How are you showing up online? Are you showing up how you want the world to see you? You're in marketing. You've been around marketing. Think how much marketing has changed over the last decade. It's drastically different, right? I mean, I remember 10 years ago, people were starting to build funnels. Like this was a new thing. It was all about the funnel and it was the lead magnet and the tripwire and all this stuff. While those are still practical marketing applications and tactics to use, people have become smart to them. Marketing is not as effective as it used to be. You're having to see people spend more money and more marketing dollars to try and drive the same amount of sales or to grow sales. And so it's a lot harder to grow on paid marketing alone. And now you talk about virality and TikTok and videos and how you're trying to expand it. And the reason is people aren't as tricked as they used to be. Their access to information is infinitely greater. And they can now talk to an AI. They can ask Siri. They do a search online, right? So your marketing is not as effective as it used to be because I have to explain the difference between marketing and branding. And this is what most people don't understand. Marketing is what you say about yourself. That's your website. Those are your social media channels and things like that. You're not going to say something bad about yourself. Consumers understand this. They've grown wise to this. They know you're not going to say something negative about yourself on your website or in your ads or on your social media channels. Branding is what other people say about you after you've left the room. Mark, if you and I walk into a room together and you go, hey, I'm Mark and I'm awesome, that's marketing. But if you and I walk into a room together and I go, guys, this is my buddy Mark and he's effing amazing, that's branding. And that's why you've seen the review platforms. There's been a 617% increase in reviews that have been left over the past 3 years on the different platforms like Google reviews and things like that, because people are leaning more into this branding element and they believe a review online just as much as they would their own mom telling them to go eat at a restaurant, right? We trust reviews online just as much as we would from a recommendation from a friend or a family member. So the branding element has become so much more viable to even make your marketing as effective as it once was.
I'm a brand strategist. I mean, listen, I can talk about brand all day long. Now, the thing though is when people talk about brand, when they say that it's what others say about you when you're not in the room, I think they're skipping over a really key part, because brand building it's not a passive experience. Your brand is how you intentionally choose to show up and how you intentionally choose to be seen and perceived by others. So it's something you can and actually must actively shape. Now, we can talk, and you and I can talk about making that first great impression. I mean, I think that's really important. But while everybody's focused on that first impression, in my experience, where you're going to lose business isn't always on the first impression. It's actually on the second or the third or the fourth impression that you're going to lose your business. And let me tell you just a quick story to help illustrate this. Years ago, I was sponsoring this high-profile event about corporate philanthropy. And I was sitting on a panel with leaders from hospital networks and national nonprofits, some really heavy hitters in the space. And after the presentation, like something really interesting happened. I had 8, 9, 10 people come up to me and they really wanted to connect with me. They were really interested in learning more. They were almost like demanding that I follow up with them. And so here's the twist though. A few weeks later, nothing happens. When these same people who really wanted to speak to me after the event kind of took a deeper look into our company, our website and what have you, we weren't specifically talking about nonprofits and philanthropic work. And so our website and our brand message, the story we put out there didn't match up. It didn't align with what I was saying from the stage. So despite the fact I made this incredible first impression, I got zero follow-ups. And it was a really uncomfortable and painful truth for me. And it taught me something really crucial and critical about brand consistency, that it's not enough to just show up and make that first great impression. It's about showing up repeatedly across every single touch point.
So that's a great point. And it's not why I start with the emphasis on the first impression is if you don't have a good first impression, you don't get a second chance at a second impression, right? So your first impression has to be on point, but really your brand or your brand element is formed when they have the right to make an opinion about you. So if somebody's marketing, right? Somebody's spending money on paid ads and they see something, you've captured their interest. That's it. You've captured their interest to learn more. That's their first impression. Now, what happens is it's vitally important is they want to ensure that the brand matches the first impression that they were. So whether you're an individual, Mark, if you and I met at this conference and I'm like, wow, Mark seems like a good dude. What I'm going to do when I get back to my hotel room is pull up Google and type you in and see what I find out. Now, does your brand match the first impression of who you are? So that's what you're talking about there. And it's the same with the marketing element is the marketing captured my attention, but does the brand promise, the brand image, the brand message support what interested me in the first place? And if it's not, if there's a disconnect, that's exactly what you're talking about is once you get to that second impression, and I wouldn't call it a second impression. I would call it when that's you have the ability to make an actual observation of the company. And when you form an opinion, if your opinion isn't upheld by your first impression, there's a disconnect and it's like, I'm not interested. And that's what's vitally important. And where this comes in is, man, you've been around sales and marketing for years. And there was always this terminology of speed to lead, speed to lead, speed to lead. You got to get to the lead first. The first person who gets to the lead wins. Well, I'll tell you what, it's no longer just about the speed to lead game. 74% of your ability is based on their impression of wanting to even be that. Because so many people start their journey online, they're doing one of two things. They're either they're intent focused. So they're going to Google and they're searching for something that they're actively searching for, right? So they're typing in the keyword or the whatever, and they find your brand. They're intently focused on finding you as a solution or what you offer as a solution. And then does what they find out about you match what they want to deal with? Or is there a competitor who blew you out of the water, who has a better brand, better message? Because you mentioned it, everybody has a brand. You just either are controlling it or you're not. And so many business owners go, well, I can't do anything about it. There's nothing I can do. That's baloney, right? You absolutely can control your narrative because you have a brand, whether you like it or not. It's how you're showing up in the world. If you're not spending time controlling the narrative, guess what? Google's controlling it for you. And so they go online with an intent and they find a brand that they're willing to feel trust and secured in. And then they'll reach out to that person and be a lead. Now, on the flip side, maybe you're doing a lot of paid marketing or paid advertising. These are pattern neurons, right? We're on our bathroom break. We're scrolling through our phone. We see something sitting there, we click on it. Well, what do? We have to go back to work or we get busy. We don't have time to go all the way down that funnel. So what do? We go back later and we search that company back up to follow up. And if that brand that I had searched for later doesn't match the first impression that initially impressed me, there's a major disconnect. And that's where you're losing leads. So your ability to generate leads, 74% of your ability to generate leads today is based on what they did, or more importantly, what they didn't find out about you online.
So I don't want to get too heavy here, but we're talking about brand and kind of this ethereal, bigger play, but there are times where we need to get really dramatic, really specific, really tactical, because something within our control or outside of our control, something's gone wrong. Back in the 2010, 2011, 2012, we used to work with a number of law firms, really large law firms. And we were doing this whole education series. And one of the speakers was a man named Michael Bryant. Now, you may not know this name, listeners, but Michael Bryant was the Attorney General for the province of Ontario. I'm Canadian. He was our Attorney General. He had a really amazing career. He was a very successful politician. And at a very young age, he became the Attorney General. And in 2009, one evening out on a date with his wife in driving through Toronto in his convertible, a cyclist got into an argument with him. It's late at night. He drives off to the next light. Cyclist catches up, gets into an argument again. They take off. They go to the next light. The cyclist comes back and is really aggressive and verbally abusive. Some kind of altercation happens. The cyclist won't let go of the car. Michael Bryant and his wife are fearing for their life, and they drive off, and the cyclist is killed. This was a really big event because it not only cost the cyclist their life, it cost Michael Bryant and everything he'd been building, everything. The reason I bring this up is in 2011 or 12, we're doing this series and he's sitting there and I'm directing this event. I'm directing this thing and I can hear what people are saying on microphone even when the mics are off. So we can call this a hot mic moment, but we were talking about something. They were talking about something and under his breath, I heard him say, in 40 seconds, your entire life can change. And that, let me tell you listeners, that stuck with me. Now, I'm not suggesting with an event that large that, Reputation Rhino or anyone can come in and help somehow overcome this really public event. But you don't have to be the attorney general. You don't have to be a politician. You don't have to be someone in the spotlight to have something like this happen to you in your control or outside of your control that can cost you absolutely everything you've been working for your entire life. And this is a big reason why people come and work with you, isn't it? Because these things happen, these things come up.
It's a fantastic point. Warren Buffett, the Buffett, as we all call him, says, I love his quote, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and only 5 minutes to ruin it. In this case, it took him 40 seconds. And from an online reputation management perspective, that's not something most people are familiar with. They don't understand it. And so they don't lean into it because they don't understand the importance of it. And so I'll tell you a story on our end too, of a very similar story of a client that we worked with. But when people come to us, there are 3 categories in which they can come to us in: build, protect, repair. Build is what I call ghost, right? You're nobody online. You don't have anything. You have no brand. And half the time when you pull something up, it's pulling up other people who aren't you with a similar name because Google's just trying to give you any relevant information it can. That's where we can come in and build your brand. Love doing that because we're basically building from scratch and we're controlling the narrative from day one. Protect. Somebody who's already achieved some sort of status or accomplishments in their life. They already have a reputation, but they're spending no time building any kind of protection around that reputation. And I call that the sandcastle. It's beautiful, but one wave comes in 40 seconds later and it's gone. And a great example of that is one of our clients, and he shares this story all over. It's on our website. He's spoken on a stage. Is Kevin Harrington, right? The original shark from Shark Tank. And Kevin was doing a deal. This was back when Cameo was big and you could just hire people to say whatever you want on Cameo. Well, he and Kevin O'Leary were hired to do a Cameo video and they gave some testimonies of these guys. And these guys ended up using them on the website and getting a lot of money from people. So they raised a lot of funds and portrayed that Kevin and Kevin from Shark Tank were in and they were behind them. And they basically fraudulently and stole this money. So what it does is it comes out that all these people lost their money. It turns into a class action lawsuit. Well, Kevin and Kevin were named in the lawsuit. I mean, they're the big brands, they're the big names, and they've got the money. And so Kevin woke up one morning and found that he was on the front page of TMZ. You're talking about somebody who's got a 40, 50-year historic career, invented the infomercial, you name it, half the products that we've ever seen. He's the guy that helped, was the mastermind behind them. And overnight, a 40-year brand was almost destroyed. When he was speaking on stage at an event that had hired him to speak later that day, and it started coming out, started getting viral traction that day. And just before he goes on stage, they pull him aside and say, we don't think you should go on. And they pulled him from the program right there and didn't even let him go on the stage. And he talks about how he lost out on some deals that he was trying to invest in, and it was costing millions of dollars. Ultimately, it was all put to bed. Everything's good. It was all settled. No harm, no foul across the board. But you talk to Kevin and he goes, I wish I would have spent, it's the an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure analogy. And he's like, I wish I would have spent a little bit of time because we could have minimized that, right? We could have had a risk mitigation by protecting it. But you're right. 80% of the people, even though there's 3 areas, 80% of the people that come to us in the repair stage because it's too late. The negative thing happened. It's negatively impacted their life. They're not able to get a job. They're not able to get promoted. They're losing sales. They're not getting new patients, you name it. And so they wait till it's too late. And that's the hardest element. We're really damn good at it. We've been doing it for 15 years. But I wish people would come to me in the brand building or the protection phase, but they don't because they don't understand how important this is until it's too late.
So let's say that I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, gosh, I'm not really super well known in this industry. I'm a huge proponent of what we call authority marketing. We have a system at our agency we help people with, but being an authority in the space, being a leader in the space, being seen. So the whole idea of know, like, trust. We've talked about advertising. We talked about marketing. That's a lot of know, but the whole like and trust component, well, that takes a lot more work. And so if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, gosh, I would like to build something stronger than a sandcastle. I would like to go from unknown to known. If we ignore the 80% of people who come just for reputation repair and fixing when there's a problem occurred, let's just look at the building side of things. What are the types of things that you're doing? What are you focusing on? Is this SEO and link building? Like, what are we doing? What goes into this?
Great question. And I'm going to give you some complexity to add to this. There is a personal brand and there is a business brand. And the strategy and tactics are a little bit different, right? You have a personal brand. Your personal name is a brand in its own. If you don't have a personal brand, you should get one. And your business should have a brand. They shouldn't coincide. Can you be the face of your business brand? Absolutely. But you should also have a personal brand.
So I'll also point out, like, from a B2B sales and marketing point of view, having a corporate brand is extremely important. But there's a reason why Elon Musk has more, well, maybe Elon's a bad example these days. I used to use this example. Elon Musk has more followers than Tesla, but Warren Buffett has more followers than Berkshire Hathaway. And most leaders have, whoever the current CEO is of Microsoft has more followers than Microsoft does. And so I think it's really, really important that we look at both sides of these things.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. Look, a brand for a company is more than just a logo. It's a complete identity, right? It's the business of product encompassing emotions, perceptions, experiences that people associate with it. So it's so much more than what people associate brand. But really what you want to do is there's several branding elements. You're looking at your visual identity, right? How do you show up in the world, right? So we say we try and create three elements. We want people to be more visible, influential, and trustworthy, right? Those to be more of a subject matter expert. First, we need you to be more visible, right? We need more eyeballs attracting to your personal brand. That's where it's got to start. Now, does your visual identity match who you are, right? One of the biggest mistakes I see is people try and create this brand persona around somebody that they're not. And it's just not genuine and it's not authentic. Who are you? What do you stand for? What are your values? What are your morals? How do you want to show up to the world? How do you want to be known? How do you want people to remember you? And have it be genuine and authentic. And then start showing up that way. For example, you can see me. I got a t-shirt and shorts on right now. I am a t-shirt and short guy. I might throw on the monkey suit every once in a while if it's a super important meeting or if I'm speaking on stage. But my brand element, if I start showing, if you search me online,
I've known you for a few years. I think the only time I've ever seen you in a suit was one time when you were on stage.
Yeah.
And if you remember, you took your jacket off before you ran on stage and you unplugged your mic and we had a whole issue. So I would say, for the safety of you and everyone around you, you should never be in a suit again.
That's it. No, but again, you saw that. You've known me for a while. You saw that. And you're like, it just felt off, right? It didn't feel genuine. And that's what I'd say is first, figure out how you want to visually be seen to the world and be genuine with it. Don't show up in a suit if your brand is not a suit. If it is a suit, show up in a suit, right? It's really important to understand that. So then, the visual is the first. Your brand voice and messaging, right, is next. Kind of that's what I'm talking about. What's the tone? How do you speak? Do you have a tagline? Be fucking awesome. What's your mission statement? What's your purpose? And so I personally believe in, this is just a personal preference. A mission can be completed, but a purpose lives on forever. So everybody always talks about what's your mission? What's your mission? Well, I don't have a mission because a mission can be completed. I have a purpose and I show up and live my purpose every day. So it's just a little bit different. What's your purpose? What's your mission? What are your core values? right? And what kind of culture do you want to do? And then you got to get good at storytelling. You start telling a story in the brand and the messaging that represents the visual representation. And then it's positioning, right? Where do we want to position you from a brand position? If I'm a gym owner, I'm not going to try and go get published in Tech Times. Doesn't make sense, right? It's again, the brand positioning doesn't match up. And then the customer experience, the emotional connection, and then the marketing and communication. So those are like the 6 elements that we're looking at. How do we do this? One, to get more visual, we have to create content around you, right? We have to create content, whether it's you doing interviews with journalists, blogs, websites, microsites, PR announcements, press releases, things like that. We have to create new content about you that dives into your brand voice, your messaging, how you want to be seen by the world, how you want to be known. And then you start sharing that message across multiple platforms, social media, all these different things. One of the biggest, and I bring up PR, there's a major distinction. I think you mentioned this earlier, is most people, when they start thinking about this, they just run to a PR agency and they're like, hey, I'm just going to go do some PR. The best analogy I can give to PR is you scream out of a megaphone at the top of a mountain, then you put the megaphone down, it's over, right? PR is real good for a quick announcement of things, but then it fizzles away. Reputation management done the right way should be something that lives on for a long period of time. So content creation, while that's really important, you need to create good quality content published in the right brand and voice, published in the right publication, the right brand positioning, again, Tech Times versus, a gym owner. And then you want to optimize that afterward. That's really the special sauce of a good reputation management company. Optimization. So I'll use the analogy that everybody's seen for anything is the iceberg analogy, right? You got the tip of the iceberg that's sticking out of the water, and then you got the big iceberg that's underneath. Content creation and content management is the tip of the iceberg that's sticking out of the water. Optimization, SEO, backlinking, all of that, click-through campaigns, that's the under the water that you don't see, but that's the most important element that keeps your brand relevant and on top. Where above, that's the PR, that's the yell out of the microphone, the content's created, and then it just falls away, right? Where if you've got all that stuff supporting it, we create a spider web effect. We're linking the different stuff that we're doing together. So it all boats raise with ships raise with a high tide type of an analogy. And so that way we're controlling it. We want to create a dominant impression online. If there's negative stuff out there, we want our stuff to rank higher to suppress that negative stuff down that's further on into the Googles, where maybe it's on page 3 or page 4 and nobody ever finds it, right? That's the ultimate goal. What we're trying to do is, so it's content creation and optimization done strategically in the right ways to match your brand voice and messaging, to match your visual, because you need to be more visible, influential, and trustworthy. Because trust is where it really gets special, because you've earned the right to someone's attention once you become influential, right? I'm going to say it again. You've earned the right to someone's attention when you become influential. When you become influential is when you build trust. And we've always heard the know, like, and trust. You mentioned this earlier. One of the biggest mistakes I see businesses and individuals make in sales, I hate that they teach it this way. Oh, when they know, like, and trust me, they're going to buy. Mark, if you have a family of 5 kids and a wife, and you go to the car dealership and you love the sales guy, he's absolutely amazing. He's the best sales guy you've ever met. And he's trying to sell you a 2-seat sports car. Are you going to buy the sports car because you know, like, and trust him? The answer is no. And so that's the biggest mistake is, oh, when they know, like, and trust me, they're going to buy from me. That's bullshit. They have to know, like, and trust you. They have to know, like, and trust the company. And they have to know, like, and trust the product or service. When they trust those 3 elements, and you can answer the following 2 questions, does it or they work? And can it or they help? If you answer yes to both of those, you have then become influential. You've earned the right to the opportunity to sell somebody. And that's the biggest mistake I see is people spend time, oh, I've got a personal brand. That's great. But if your business sucks and you've got bad reviews, and if you don't have any brand business, they have no trust in the business. They're not just going to do business with you because they like you. Or if the product doesn't work, right? It's, oh, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. And you have all these people saying it doesn't work. They're not going to buy the product just because they like your brand or you as the individual. All three elements need to work. Know, like, and trust you, your product, and your service. And your brand message needs to support that from first impression to second impression to third impression to fourth impression.
Such a good overview. And you touched on one thing there that I think most owners, CEOs, and many marketers may miss, which is it's not enough to build it. We've learned this lesson a long time ago, right? You start a business. I remember when I started my business, 2006. I started my business. I have the name. I have the legal stuff. I have the phone number. I rented a small office. On day one, I go and I set up my desk and I set up my email and my autoresponder and I pick up the phone and I go like, you've reached Mark Drager on January, whatever. I did all that stuff. And then I remember like 9:45 in the morning, I was thinking like, now what? And I called my mom even, and I'm an hour into day one. And I was like, I've quote unquote set up my company. Now what? And so we know that the world is not waiting for any of us. If you build it, they will come. We know that that's not true. And so we know we have to market our businesses. We know we have to advertise. We know we have to lead gen. We know we have to have sales. And yet people seem to think or forget that we have to market our content, that it's not enough to make a blog post because no one, chances are, will see it. It's like walking into a forest, taking your blog post, printing it out, stapling it to a tree, hoping that someone will come across it. Someone will find it. It'll happen to be the right person. And so if we go back 10 years ago, just creating content was enough. Let's say 15 years ago, just creating content was enough. 10 years ago, just creating content and linking content was enough. And then it became about off-page stuff. What are we doing to link back in? And then it was enough just to do social media. And then suddenly it's like, well, we have a following, but none of our followers on Facebook are seeing our stuff. So now we have to boost our posts and we have to pay money to Facebook just so our followers can see it. And so at every step along the way, we have had to work harder and harder and harder to even get people to see the content, to get people to see who we are. And part of what you were describing in there with this web effect, with this fact that it all contributes to rising tides rises all boats type of thing, is that it's great if you're listening to this, it's great if you're making stuff. If you have a podcast, maybe like I do, or if you do YouTube content, or if you do blog posts, or you decide to write articles or whatever it might be, content marketing is fantastic, but it's not enough. You actually have to have a distribution strategy or an advertising strategy or a marketing strategy for the very content that you're creating. And that's part of something that you guys help with, right?
Yeah. So you bring up an amazing point. You have to be omnipresent. The problem is our attention is so divided and continues to get more divided every day. 30 years ago, you advertised on the TV or the radio. That's it, right?
Don't forget Yellow Pages. Pages.
You had the ability to capture audiences in three ways. And, let's say billboards, park benches, stuff like that. But there were less than 10 major media abilities to capture attention. There's more than 10 freaking social media platforms on most people's phones today. You've got TV, you've got live TV, you've got streaming TV. Now you've got streaming services. Now you've got the internet. Now you've got your cell phone. Now you've got this. You have all these different things and you don't know, not everybody is using the same media to consume information. So first off, you have to go to where the people are. They're online. If you're not online in today's society, you're irrelevant. But you have to show up where your clientele is showing up. That's another big mistake, especially from a branding, right? Branding, you have to build the brand, but now we're talking about marketing. Where do we show up to capture attention? Well, attention is so divided because there's so many opportunities for it to be divided. We need to show up where our clients are. I love Lamborghini, and we don't advertise on social media because our clients aren't on social media. We don't do TV commercials because our people aren't watching TV. They know their brand. They know their branding element. They know the new logo thing. That's a whole nother conversation. But they know where their people are showing up and they're in front of them in the right places. Are you in front of your clientele in the right places? And do you have a brand that supports how you're showing up in those places?
So I'm speaking with Dave Fulk, CEO of Reputation Rhino, and an investor who helps business owners grow and scale. Now, before you go, Dave, I do have one final question for you. And it's a question that I love to wrap up every episode with. If you could give us one tip, one strategy to help those of us listening sell more, what would that be?
Oh man, well, we've been talking about branding all day. So don't be an ostrich and bury your head in the sand. You have a brand, whether you like it or not. Nurture it, give it attention, define it, and spend some time controlling the narrative around it. Because if you're not, Google is.
And that was my conversation with Dave Fulk. Be sure to head over to reputationrhino.com to learn more about all of their services over there. You can connect with Dave over on his website, davefulk.com, or he's pretty active on LinkedIn. You can learn about his approach to brand building, to reputation management, and of course, you can learn more about the services he offers for businesses looking to scale from $2 to $10 million and beyond. Now, while you're over on LinkedIn, be sure to look me up and connect with me as well. Drop me your thoughts on this conversation. If you want, you can share your own painful stories with me, like my sponsorship of that philanthropic event that didn't really go anywhere. Anyway, connecting with listeners really does make my day. I love it, and I would love to hear from you. Now, one last thing. If you've made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe, and here's why. Each week, we bring you fresh sales and marketing ideas and proven strategies from industry experts and seasoned entrepreneurs, just like what Dave shared with us today, to help you grow your business and to help you sell more. So with that, I want to thank you for listening. We're going to wrap up this episode. I am Mark Drager, and I will catch you in the next one.